Okay, we're in the Sikha of Parsha Shoftim, Chelik Lamed Daled. We're holding in the middle of Seif Daled. In this booklet here, and in the Sefer as well, it's on page 118. So what are we learning about? We're going to learn first some footnotes. We're starting off with Ha'ara 36 today, a very Geshmaka Ha'ara. So the Sikha is discussing the Nevuah for Moshiach, where the Rambam brings a couple of sources. He brings the source from Parshas Nitzavim, where the pasuk pretty clearly and simply, straightforward, speaks about Mashiach. There's no other way to explain it other than Mashiach. That's a simple pshat. Then there's the psukim in Parshas Bilam, which are not so clear. The whole nevuah of Bilam is all allegorical. But it says, and Chazal, Darshan, that it refers to Yemaisa Mashiach. What this sikh is focusing on primarily is the separate halacha that the Rambam brings, that the mitzvah of Ari Miklot, the detail of the Miyarcha Vavayla Gavulcha, will only be fulfilled when Mashiach comes, which shows that Mashiach is a prat in the mitzvah. It enables a mitzvah. The point that Rebbe says is that as great as the nevuah, the promise in a nevuah is, there lav dafka has to be in the sky 100% begashmius. Meaning, Rebbe pointed out, when it comes to nevuah, there are reasons that nevuah won't be fulfilled. When it comes, however, to a mitzvah of the Torah, on that the Rambam writes and emphasizes that it's aniyah vayla shenisi, or that's the hezbollah. Because the Eibush is leish shenisi, so therefore Torah is beyond the concept of change. It's connected to the Eibush himself, where there is no concept of change, and that's how powerful the nevuah for the coming of Mashiach is, because it's a prat of a mitzvah. Okay, so in the Oster that we're learning here, that Rebbe is discussing, besides the fact that this is a nevuah, it's also a part of a pasuk in Torah. So, isn't the fact that it's in a pasuk in Torah the same powerful as a mitzvah? Seemingly. So the point that we learned last week is that Rebbe explains when it comes to the psukim of Torah, it's actually possible that the fulfillment of psukim in the Torah, whether regarding promises of the future, or certain stories in Torah, even about the past, that it doesn't mean bepashtus begashmius. It could be interpreted beruchnius or some kind of other interpretation. It doesn't have to mean literally begashmius. We're going to see more details about this today, but first, let's see what it says in the Order 36. So here the Rebbe focuses on this point that the mitzvahs not only are they nitzchias, but the fulfillment begashmius is nitzchias. Torah, the nitzchias of psukei HaTorah is lav dafke begashmius. So what's the big deal about this? It seems to be just a different way of how what it says in the Torah is fulfilled, whether begashmius or beruchnius. But as far as the eternity in this, it's the concept of nitzchias is the same. Elamai could be nitzchias in olam is ruchnim and nitzchias in olam is gashmim. What happens in Olam Mizruchnim is less real and less true than what happens in Olam Hazah Gashmi. It's not less real. If anything, it's more real. Olam Atzilis, Olam Ruchni is a real world. Olam Hazah Gashmi is much lower. It's a tachtin. It's a very... So the fact that Nitzchias a Teire is in Olam Mizruchnim and the Nitzchias of mitzvahs is Begashmias, does that express a Maila in the Nitzchias of mitzvahs? Here in Order 36, the Rebbe will explain, yes, it does, and the Rebbe will explain why. Let's see. Now, move on, it's understood. The fact that the nitzchias of mitzvahs is dafke, that they'll be fulfilled always, begashmias, so it's a higher level of nitzchias. It's not only a question of where the nitzchias applies, it's actually a deeper concept of nitzchias. Why? Those matters that the nitzchis, the eternity in them consists of that in their spiritual content. So it will always apply in one world or another. But vilu begashmi is davar. But physically, in its physical application in this world, at a certain point, this doesn't apply anymore. So this itself is a sign. That means that the nitzchis is not 100% nitzchis. There's a certain limitation how far this nitzchis is. The truth that's in it Emes meaning something that is so true that it doesn't get changed in any level, doesn't get changed in the condition of the place. It's the essence of truth. But over here, it's not really the essence of truth, because it only plays out in Ruchni, it's not in Gashmis. When something is taka, the essence of truth, so then it's true on every level. There's no difference. So this is a Hagbala, not the real Nitzchis. When it comes to mitzvahs, and that includes also the halachas of Torah, which explain the actual mitzvahs. Here, the nitzchis is pashit physically. Why? This is connected to a emes, a level of the Eibishter's truth. The truth of the Eibishter's existence is so powerful that it doesn't make a difference what level you're on. It's not a truth that's defined or based on certain conditions that truth should be. It's bad, some truth. It can never stop. There's here the Rebbe doesn't bring this in, but there's the famous word when you get to Naharis HaMachazvan. When you have a stream of water or a river that flows, and after 7 years it dries up, so it's called Naharis HaMachazvan, meaning it's false waters. Why? Because the fact that it only flows under certain circumstances, but it doesn't continue flowing, what does that mean? It's not a real flow of water here. Certain circumstances allow for the water to flow here, but it's not be'etzem a place of water. It's the same thing with the Eibishter. When you have a Gilui Elokos or Psa'inyan that's only applied in a certain matzav, in a certain olam, so what does that mean? It's not the etzem, the source of truth itself. The truth itself is true on every level. That's the level of nitzchis of a mitzvah. She'ein shum agbala v'chelukim b'nitzchizu. There's no limitation, there's no differences in the level of this nitzchis. And therefore there's a distinction that Ruchni is the good world, it's true. Gashmi is the good world, it doesn't apply anymore. It has to come down, it's fulfilled even here physically in our world. That's real nitzchis. So the Rebbe brings from a different place where this is explained as well. Kamoishin is bar b'makamacher. This is also explained in another place. B'mailas halachas haTorah. Within Torah, so the halachas of Torah. So you have discussions in Torah. You have all kinds of things. All right. So what's the real nitzchis of Torah? The actual halachas. So we know that regarding every part of Torah, when there's a machlekes, when there's a discussion, even a havamin of Torah, it's also part of Torah. And elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chaim. So it's all true. But not emes la'mitay. The emes la'mitay of Torah, the emes of Torah is dafken the halachas. Shedafke hey nikrois emes la'mitay. The Torah. That's the real emes of Torah. Why? Ki emes shebehem ad l'maisa b'poyel. Here, the emes consists of the fact that it's not only true in some world of ruchnius that there's a certain concept or a theory that's true, but it's true even in practice. It comes down on every single level because it's true without any limitation. It's be'etzem true, so it applies everywhere. That truth is not dependent on one condition or another. Is not the ultimate. No. This right.
What does it mean?
Alakim Chaim. Alakim Chaim means that it's a certain gilui, with a certain kav, with a certain tzir, and in that tzir, in that inyan, Beishamai is representing the gilui of Gvura. Beis Hillel is representing the gilui of Chesed. In the world of Gilui Elokos, that's defined by Gvura, so the attitude of Beishamai is 100% true. But it's already a formulated inyan of Elokos that is already relating to a certain inyan. The etzem of Torah, the emes of Torah, that is true, not only representing a certain tzad of a gilui, but it can be applied to Gashmias. That's the emes that comes down and breaks through every single level, and it can be niskayim b'Gashmias. Why? Because it's the etzem true. It's a much deeper level of truth. That's the pshat that Chassidus says about Elu V'Elu Divrei Elokim Chaim. I was somewhere I saw this sefer somewhere, a pirish of the pshat of Elu V'Elu Divrei Elokim Chaim, as opposed to halacha, some Litvish sefer or some Veltish sefer, not in Chassidus. So he's trying to explain what's this concept of Elu V'Elu Divrei Elokim Chaim. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Either what he says is true or what he says is true. How could you have two truths that are opposites, chayiv and pater, at the same time? He says, because the Gemara tells us that Eibishter gave the Torah to the seichel of a human being to decide how to learn and interpret Torah. As the Gemara says in Masechet Bava Metzia, "Nitzchuni b'nei nitzchuni." That what a person understands al pi seichel, that's true. So if Beishamai understands with his seichel azay, so therefore it's true al pi Torah, because that Torah says that his human brain understands it like this, it's true. And if his human brain understands different, so it's true also, because that's the klal of Torah, that seichel determines, seichel anushi determines, or the seichel of the nefesh l'kis maybe, determines the truth of Torah. That's Elovei Divrei Elokim Chai. That's what Pshari says. But according to Chassidus, that's not the pshat of Elovei Divrei Elokim Chaim. Nothing to. So according to that, the vart is
really true.
Yeah, it's not. It's a subjective truth, sort of. He has his seichel that arrives to one conclusion. Someone else has a seichel that arrives to a different conclusion. So say that. So with Klali at Torah, we could say that it's a chelik of Torah. Chassidus says no.
But how did he even going in perspective as a level?
Yeah, and so what's unique about Torah as opposed to any other seichel? You have the same concept. Yeah, so according to this pshat, and Chanami, Torah is the same as any other seichel. Elamai the chiddush is that just like every other school of thought, the Eibishter allowed or decided that Torah is also dependent on seichel anushi. Obviously, Chassidus does not learn and understand this in this way at all, because that's not Torah. Torah is Chochmas Hashem, Gilui Elokus. Right? So therefore, the fact that it's Elovei Divrei Elokim Chayim is because there's a flow, a Gilui of Elokus that's here in this. And the fact that the Torah says that a Yid with his Seichel could come to the truth is because it's the Seichel of a Yid. It's the Seichel of the Neshama. And it's Chuni Banai. It's Chuni. That's what the Gemara says. It's my children. That's the Shadish of the truth of Torah. Elamai, in this level of truth, once you learn Chassidus, you open your eyes, you start understanding that there are various levels of truth. True and false is not just if it's a lie, if it's 2 + 2 = 5 is sheker. 2 + 2 = 4 is true. That's the extent of true and false. It's much deeper than that. Truth is a relative thing. Something that is true on one level is not necessarily true on a different level. In the reality of our world, if you want to define what exists, how do you define existence? If it has dimensions, if I can touch it, if I can see it, it exists. In the world of Seichel, that's not what defines existence. So in every world, it's truth, whether it's if it's a reality, if it's a thing or not, there's different parameters of how we define that, how we decide that. Okay, so the same thing also in Torah. The Gili of Torah that comes through the Shakal V'Tarya and Machlekesen is a level of Torah that has already a shaykhis to a certain kab, certain formulation. Enkin, the emes of Torah, the etzem of Torah, the halachos of Torah is emes lamite. That's on every level. It's not related to anything. Gives mitzayne the mime of the Rebbe Marash, and there's a mime of the Rebbe Rashav that speaks about this. Tafresh Chov Zayin, Tafresh Samach Zayin, Samach Vav that is. Emes shabemi ad lamaisa b'poel. Okay, there's a shula gillion here. It's a little bit hard to read it. It's not the copy didn't come out so clear. But if you take a look at the bottom of the page, so here the Rebbe adds, "V'harei yisoid the nitzchiyas atayre shebehilchis yisoid the atayre sham." The Rambam is the one that very much speaks about this fundamental point of nitzchiyas atayre. Ugam benegei lepirish on mitzvahs v'tayre shebal peh. The Rambam there is not only speaking about the actual mitzvahs, but also regarding the halachas of mitzvahs, the way Chazal interpreted what the halachas of mitzvahs are. It's Rebbe's mitzayne to various places in Hilchas Shuvah and so on, where the Rambam speaks about this. Elo shebesayf Hilchas Megillah, but there is another place where the Rambam puts halachas of Torah in another category. Mashve hanitzchi is the halachas shel Torah. There the Rambam compares the halachas of Torah shebal peh l'chamisha chumshei Torah b'chlal to the nitzchis of the psukim of chamisha chumshei Torah, which is different than what the Rebbe is explaining here, because here the Rebbe is basically explaining chamisha chumshei Torah, psukim of Torah. The nitzchis could be beruchnius, lav dafke begashmius. Okay, let's continue back inside the Sikha where we were holding last week. Ukedimatzino. It's in the second column on page 118 in the brackets. Here the Rebbe gives an example of psukim in Torah, which is a promise in the future, but we see that it doesn't necessarily get fulfilled physically. So we find this clearly. So this concept that a promise in Torah won't necessarily be fulfilled in reality. Why? Because an Aveda can cause that it shouldn't be fulfilled by Gashmis. This even refers to those promises that are clear and explicit in the Torah. So there's a brayse brought in Sech the Brachas that says, the pasuk we say every day in Yaz Yasher, Ad Yaveramcha Hashem, Ad Yaveram Zukanisa. The nation, the Yidden, will pass through into Eretz Yisrael. It says a double lashon in the pasuk. So the Gemara says, Ad Yaveramcha Hashem Zu Biyar Rishayna. That refers to the first time Yidden came into Eretz Yisrael. Shabal Aretz B'mei Yeshua, Rashi. Ad Yaveram Zukanisa Zu Biyishnia. This refers the second time they came up from Bavel, Kisha'alu Migavla as Bavel B'mei Ezra, Rashi. So basically, what the pasuk is saying is the second time Yidden came into Eretz Yisrael, that was supposed to be the final entry into Eretz Yisrael to remain with no galus and chorban ever. Really, the Yidden should have entered into Eretz Yisrael when they came from Bavel with the same kind of miracles that they came into Eretz Yisrael, like the time of Yeshua, just like by Yeshua, they should split the yard and all the tremendous miracles that took place. When they came up with Ezra, it should have been the same kind of miracles. But because of the Yidden's Chatayim, so it did not get fulfilled physically. So here, what do you see? So the Rebbe asks, at first glance, he could ask, it's recorded already in Torah much earlier, before they came into Eretz Yisrael. And what's written in the Torah cannot change. There's no change and there's no minimizing words of Torah. And you can't add to Torah either. So how could you say that there's a change here and that there's a reason, whatever reason it may be, that this is not actually fulfilled? So what we must say is, how do you define nitzchias and Torah? Yes, it is nitzchias. But in what level is it nitzchias? So this concept of nitzchias of Torah, so when it comes to the pirish of the psukim, so you can't know how this nitzchias is fulfilled. In psukim of Torah, it could be physically, it could be spiritually, it could be fulfilled regardless, it could be fulfilled only with a condition. That's some psukim of Torah. Okay, so the Rebbe concludes the inyan v'zeu achidish b'inyaneinu. So that's a chiddush regarding the promise of the coming of Moshiach that now becomes a detail of a mitzvah. Shekiven shavtachas aguli hi prat mi mitzvahs ori miklot chal oleo geder nitzchias mitzvahs ha-Torah. It has the level of nitzchias of a mitzvah. Asher, so now Aleph number 1, muchrach le'eskayim b'pashtos of the gashmias. That means that it must be fulfilled literally and physically. And beis u'ba'ofen she'ein shayach b'zeh shenikla kanal. And since this is something which is nitzchias of mitzvahs and not just a nevuah, it's impossible for there to be any change. Not only that there won't actually be a change, but a mitzvah is from a level where it's not, the concept of change doesn't begin there. Okay, so now here, Ha'ara 41, let's learn one more Ha'ara here for today, and the Rebbe will explain another detail to this whole inyan. So the whole point of the Pnim of the Sikha, go ahead, sorry.
What happened by Amzuk by B.S. Ezra? So it was Gar
Machet, and therefore they did not enter into Eretz Yisrael.
Even though it's a pasuk in Torah.
Even though it's a pasuk in Torah. So that pasuk, yeah. The nisim, the promise was beruchnis, but the gashmis, the chet prevented it of being materialized. But here in Ha'ara 41, the Rebbe will go back to the concept of nitzchis and psukim, that l'chayre, it could actually depend. You can argue it depends what the psukim say. A lot of the psukim of the Torah are written very vague, or at least not spelled out 100%. And here's where Chazal come in, midrashim, Torah Sheba'al Peh, that explain what the psukim mean. But then there are certain psukim that are written straightforward, very clear. You don't need any, the Pirush of Chazal doesn't add to what it says already clearly in the pasuk, right? So now you could say those psukim that are not so clear, and it's totally in Chazal and explaining them. So over there, the nitzchis of those psukim could be begashmias, it could be beruchnias. Sometimes Chazal itself will tell you that right from the first point that it's only beruchnias, or even it could be that it has two ways how it can be fulfilled, begashmias or beruchnias, depends if you'll be zeiche or you will not be zeiche. But then there are certain psukim in Torah that Chazal didn't darshan anything because it's pashut, pshat in the pasuk, it's clear, straightforward, begashmias. So the chayr over there's a different klal. Klal for such kind of psukim, it says, ein mikra yitzim midei pshute. Simple pasuk, simple pshat, so it has to be fulfilled even begashmias. So let's see the Rebbe's question here. But now seemingly you could ask, Kiven shepashtus hamikrois da'avtocha the Parshas Nitzav. Simple pshat of the way the psukim are read in Parshas Nitzav that the Rambam quotes. Right, V'shav Hashem lekecha shvuscha. Hashem will return the Yidden. Koyala gulasida. That's what it's speaking about. The gulasida. Mashe'enken benevuas bilam she'enim mefurish b'pshat. Over there, kanal. B'tchilas hasicha. B'cheina ha da'am zukanisa. The pasuk in Bilam. It's not al pi pshat. You don't necessarily see it talks about Mashiach. It talks about something of the future. Chazal dashen it that it speaks about Mashiach. The same thing with the pasuk over here, Amzu Kanisa, which was not fulfilled b'gashmias. Why? Because it's not a pasuk where you could say that it's written clear. It's a chatchila pasuk that we don't know what this redundancy is about. Chazal said that it was supposed to be referring to when the Yidden came in the second time.
And why can't Amzu Kanisa go on Mashiach?
Maybe it would still will be. Anachanami. Could be that Taka B'Payol, it'll be fulfilled then. In Cain, so over here though, when it comes to the Parsik and Parshas Nitzavim, which is very simple, so Tzrich L'Eskayim B'Pashtus, so this has to be fulfilled very simply and literally. Ka'klal Dei Mikra Yotzim Midei Pshuta. Here you apply the klal that the Gemara says that you have to interpret the Pasuk the way it is literally. There's no reason why not to in this case. Okay, so this is a question on the whole point of the Sikha. Rebbe is saying, Dafke mitzvahs is begashmias, but certain psukim and Torah are also dafke begashmis. And here, the Rambam already brought the psukim of Parshas Nitzavim, which is dafke begashmis. So why is he bringing the raya from mitzvahs? Aval, but the Rebbe says even on this point, Aleph number 1, Tzarichion, ubefrat ledas Rambam im klal ze omur gam avtochas avteira. This klal that the Gemara says in Yevamis and Shabbos that ein mikra yetzim midei pshutai. Is this true when it comes to promises in the Torah? Maybe it's only referring to certain mitzvahs in the Torah or other things in the Torah, but not promises. Maybe according to the Rambam, even psukim that are written very simple and literal, alpha pikein, not necessarily is going to be fulfilled b'gashmis.
Actually, the Rambam said that all that it's not.
When you get to the nevuas, the Garzev and Keves and so on, right? Those are nevuas, but here the Rebbe is talking about psukim in the Torah. Take a look in the Shulei Gilyon at the bottom of the page. You start at the bottom of the page. Why is the Rebbe saying that possibly, according to the Rambam, it doesn't have to be kipshutai, even though the pasuk is just written very simple? Shemadgish kanal, because when the Rambam speaks about the nitzchis of Torah, what does he say? Shirakim hoitzi advarim shal mitzvahs mipshutan. Arezeh, the Rambam says you're not pekaitis. The Rambam clearly says only if one says that mitzvahs won't be fulfilled b'gashmis, then you are classified as not pekaitis. So only mitzvahs, not necessarily any pasuk in Torah. Rei Rambam Milchas Malachim Reish Perik Yud Beis Migdal Sham. Right, so the Rebbe is referring to what you just mentioned. The Rambam there says that Lasad Lavai, there won't be any Isis and Maipsim, even though there are so many psukim that speak about it, but it doesn't have to be Kipshutai. V'Yeduais Chuvais HaRashba B'Zeh. There's also Chuvas of the Rashba about this, and here the Rebbe quotes one line in the Rashba, and the Rashba there writes Be'emes Harbe Ksuvim Dibru Derech Mashal Chulu Ayin Sham. Many psukim in the Torah are written with Mashalim. So this could even include those psukim that are written in the Pashtus, the Genoifim, Kipshutai, but not necessarily it doesn't mean Kipshutai.
So the scholars need only Sipurim.
Or mitzvahs maybe when you get to certain mitzvahs, or maybe Sipurim in Torah, but right now, Lav Daf, when you get to the Haftachas of Torah.
Which is part of the
He's like a mountain of Alphabet.
Okay, one more point the Rebbe says here. Let's finish off. So is Bezer at the second point. We're in the bottom here in the Hara. Even if we're going to say that the Rambam agrees that the nitzchias of psukim and Torah in this case is nitzchias b'pashtus b'gashmias, but later we'll see. We'll learn next week in Mitzvah Sifei. There's still a certain nafkemin la halacha of the fact that the nitzchias of Mashiach is connected to a mitzvah. And that's why the Rambam connects it after to mitzvah, as we'll see. So that's already an additional point. We'll see Mitzvah next week in Sifei.
So somebody instead of a whole different kind, instead of Rabbi Heller.